Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Peace be upon you all. I begin in the name of God, most beneficent, most merciful. Actually, I feel quite overwhelmed by today. I'm always quite an emotional person, as my kids keep telling me off for, so I hope I don't get emotional. Yeah, I mean, it is a real, I've really enjoyed my journey here. I had no traffic jams, beautiful sunshine, beautiful church bells as I came into Ipswich that I thought were just for me. I think it is a privilege. It's a privilege to be here with our beloved teacher, Sahib Hassan, and his wonderful family, who I've recently got to know. Also our dear brother, Abu Muntazir, who I've recently got to know and love in the last couple of years. And normally only ever, I've really sort of got to know more and more about him and all of the great things that you do through this bizarre world that we call Facebook, which I kind of resisted for a couple of years and then felt I had to dive in, and now I feel like I can't get out. And I'm still wondering, do I take a break in Ramadan or not? I still haven't quite figured that one out, whether I'm going to benefit or not. It is really nice to be here. I think you're all very, very doing some amazing things. It's quite obvious looking at the book, looking at all of the things you guys do on Facebook. You're extremely privileged to have our dear brother giving your sort of lessons on a weekly basis. I came across his Seerah classes last year. I remember it in Ramadan, and I managed to download them somehow onto my phone and would listen to them as I was doing my housework, actually in Ramadan, because it's still have to do housework. And I was, again, very moved, and I think I probably became more close to the Prophet from listening to his teachings than I ever have before. So may Allah bless him and give him long life to carry on teaching all of us. And inshallah, I hope I can come back and learn. And of course, when I come, I learn from all of you, and hopefully, inshallah, you should take a few words from me. I was given this topic, but actually the title, again, as you said, was very different to what I had thought it was going to be. But luckily, by the grace of God, it's actually still relevant. But I did add in opportunities. So I was given the title Challenges, and normally challenges can be seen as negative. And I am, I think, an optimistic kind of a person, maybe naive as well sometimes, but I like to say I'm an optimist. So opportunities as well, because obviously with challenges normally come opportunities. So I'm just going to go through a few things. I don't know how long I've actually got now. Where's our chairperson gone? What time do we, he's over there. What time have I got? Just so that I can, because I too tend to talk a bit. Okay, gosh, right. So, can I ask you to, let's make sure it's working. Okay, so just very quickly then, who am I? The three questions, I always put this up here, there's three questions I normally get asked, depending on the audience actually, so it varies. It can be along the lines of, do you wear that scarf in bed? It can be, does your husband force you to wear it? It can be, have you been to Pakistan? In this audience, maybe it would be, have you been to Bangladesh? So I normally get asked all of these questions. Actually, I was born and brought up in Surrey. I now live in Slough. Slough's nowhere near as bad as the TV likes to make you think it is. So I'd invite you all to come and see it for yourself one of these days. I converted in 1995. I got married a year later. I've now happily married, still now, just celebrated our 15th anniversary last week, going to Paris next week to celebrate it even more. I've got 4 beautiful children, mashallah, I've been very blessed. And as I say, I'm an optimist, sometimes maybe slightly naive, people tell me, but I like to think that it's a good thing, and obviously constantly learning. Okay. This is one of my favourite sayings in life: if it is to be, it's up to me. So it's really, and it ties in with all of what we do, in that, it's very easy sometimes to blame others, to go down the blame game and blame others for whatever's happening in our own life or what's happening around us. But I actually believe, and obviously we have a firm belief in God, that God is guiding us in everything we do. But if it is to be, it's up to me. At the end of the day, we are making our own life, our own reality. And I think it's very, very important for us to remember that. And in the topic that I'm talking about today, it's especially relevant because it's very easy for us to think how negative or how many challenges indeed there are, but actually how we need to take control and be much more making it happen, and I believe making it happen in a positive way. Okay, I should have really done this as a quiz, but I didn't. I don't know why, I forgot. I was supposed to be saying what percentage of the UK population are Muslim. Well, actually, you can do it as a quiz because you can decide there, 2%, 14 or 23. Anyone want to shout out? I'm sure you all know anyway. It's 2%. Yep, it is 2%. Okay, next one. So just some basic statistics here that some of you may know, some of you may not, just very, very quickly rattling through. I can send this to whoever wants it afterwards as well. Obviously, we have a very young population. This is pretty much based on the kind of 2001 census. We've just recently had our next census, so it'll be interesting to see what the figure's like when they come out next year. Very, very young population. Almost half the Muslim population live in London, which is different to what people imagine. Always think it would be Bradford or just Bradford, maybe. But of course, it's actually more London than any other place. Very, very diverse. I can't remember the number of languages spoken amongst Muslims, but it's a huge number. Unfortunately, some of the more negative statistics at the bottom, however optimistic I might be, those figures are not very positive at all, particularly the 12% of the prison population in this country are Muslim, whether we like it or not. There's all sorts of issues and reasons and all sorts of discussions around why that is and the kinds of people it is. But the bottom line is that is the figure. We are 2% of the population, 12% of the prison population. And of course, we know there's all sorts of statistics around low educational attainment amongst Muslims, particularly Bangladeshi and Pakistani pupils. I think there's some work going on and things are moving hopefully in the right direction, but still we are struggling when it comes to some of these issues. And of course, education can also be, the issue is also part of, because the first generation that came here, a lot of them that came here themselves weren't educated and have not been able to, in a way linking to what our brother said about English and being able to be part and parcel of this country, haven't really been able to bring themselves into the fold, really, if you like, of this country. And part of that then passes on to the children. And hopefully, inshallah, we can move on in the right direction. Okay, so some of the horrible stuff that we all know about, however much we like to think it doesn't happen, it does. Call it what you like. Some people call it Islamophobia. Some people call it, just general misunderstanding of what Islam is about. Of course, the very ugly side of the media that we've been seeing in the last couple of days is, something we're all very, very aware of. We've all seen some of these headlines where, I don't know how clear that is on there, but you can get the general picture. We've all seen headlines like this. I don't know if you remember the amazing visit of the Pope last year. And, there were a couple of guys that were overheard in a canteen, literally in London, talking about it. And the next day on the newsstands, you saw a headline like that. Of course, it was utter, complete nonsense. They had no plan to do anything to the Pope, but someone had overheard, had made it out into something, and the newspaper decided to print that. Of course, once you see a headline like that, it's in someone's subconscious. It's very difficult then for them to forget about it, even though they may not consciously think it, even though they may think, oh, it's a load of rubbish. But at the end of the day, the damage has been done when it's a drip, drip effect. Anybody know who that is? Yep. Who is that? Yusuf Islam. Okay, the reason I put this picture up, this is Cat Stevens, as was, pop singer of the 70s, huge international star at the time, and still actually now has a huge following in every country of the world. And of course he converted, and actually he sort of left his musical career, if you like, and actually has recently, I think is a good thing, actually come back to his music and is again entertaining people all over the world, mashallah. The reason I put that up there was because last year I was doing some work in schools. It was largely, in this particular school, it was a secondary school, largely children who weren't of a Muslim background. And we were doing a kind of awareness and quizzes and kind of things to get them thinking. They were showing some images, this was one of them, and they were asked, what's the first thing that comes in your mind when you see this image? And they wrote down things like terrorist, hate preacher. Now, hate preacher, that's a term that comes straight out of the Sun newspaper. It's something that's been generated very recently. So we know when a child or a teenager says that, you know that it's coming from, they haven't just made it up. They've actually seen it, even if they don't realise it. So they actually put that about him. And of course, we then were able to say to them, actually, do you know who it really is? And some of them put Osama bin Laden as well, actually. And obviously, we decided to choose a picture that specifically looked a bit kind of how he doesn't look really now. But he did look like that before. Just to really make a point, actually, they were quite shocked, I think, some of them. The teachers were actually quite embarrassed as well. But it was a very good awareness raising to make them realise that they're getting these messages from somewhere. Where are they getting these messages from? And actually, this guy's as I say, an international pop star, really, in his day, and actually has won all sorts of awards for his peace work all over the world. So clearly not a terrorist or a hate preacher. Now, obviously, we have this massive issue. This is an ongoing debate, and I would encourage all of you to get involved. And as our dear brother says, you know, it's really important for us to be really aware. Sometimes I want to run away from all this stuff and go and live in the middle of Cornwall somewhere and forget that all of this news and everything exists. But the reality is it does. We have to be on top of it. I've never been interested that much in politics, but I kind of feel I have to be now just to keep a grip on, you know, what's happening. And of course, you know, there's this whole debate now around what's free speech. Can the newspapers, can the media, can everyone just print what they like? You know, where's the line, where's the limit? And of course, in the last couple of days, as I say, that debate is happening again, thank goodness, where, you know, these journalists have been shown to be actually doing anything they possibly like just to get a story. And actually, it's really people power and kind of discussing all these issues that are going to make a change, I think. So we have to continually do that. Obviously, Muslims have become, I suppose, to a certain extent, understandably defensive, feel slightly, you know, on the back foot and in the corner. And of course, when you're pushed into a corner, the natural reaction is to defend, to be very defensive, and also to go inwards. And I believe in the last couple of years, while things were moving in the right direction, in the last couple of years, I think we've kind of gone a bit backwards in terms of our feeling that we're being picked on or spied on, and all of these things. And I think all are very difficult, and they are very, very difficult issues. I'm not going to stand here and say they're not. Of course, after 7/7, and we just had the 6th anniversary of 7/7, but a whole load of new issues, I would argue the country changed at that point. But it's about what we do with it and how do we deal with it. I'm not going to give his name because he gets far too much publicity as it is, but I just wanted to put this up there because, of course, I believe we have this challenge as well. As Muslims who are trying to be positive force for good in this country, we have to deal with these lot as well, unfortunately. And I believe they've done a lot of damage, even though they're very, very small in number, but they're very clever. They've used things in a way that they know they get these kinds of headlines. You know, the most recent one that comes to mind was on Armistice Day, so the Poppy Day, where they actually burnt a poppy. Now, in fact, there were only literally a handful of them, literally. And in fact, there was a counter, I would say, positive demonstration, literally up the road, which got no publicity whatsoever, both from Muslims and other people that were with them as well. Of course, this burning a poppy will make a great story. We can't really do anything about that, but we have to keep challenging, and I believe we need to challenge these lot more and more. I put that up there because you can see the kind of, now they would probably say, well, these are just sound bites, but actually there are things that they've said as well, and these pictures are real as well. So sometimes Muslims even become defensive, don't want to speak out about this stuff, but I believe it's because we haven't that they've allowed to gain more and more. And it might seem ridiculous, but actually sometimes they say it in a certain way, and sometimes it can be very appealing. So I think we do need to be aware of it, but, you know, as I say, they don't need any more publicity than what they already get, to be quite honest. So I think we'll go on to the next one. And then, of course, you have this challenge. You can see down at the bottom, everyone knows what the EDL is, right? English Defence League. You know, at the bottom there, on that flag, it says, how dare this government allow our troops to be spat on and abused? So what are they talking about there? Does anybody know? They're talking about the likes of the lot in the previous slide, when they specifically went to Luton and waited for, you know, and other places and threatened to do certain things. And when the troops came home, they were very abusive, and in the way that our brother was saying earlier, you know, in a way that we know we shouldn't do, is to be, you know, very offensive towards them. Anybody who knows the absolute base psyche of the people in this country will know how dear troops and the war and armies are. Now, we all, not just Muslims, struggle with the wars that are going on in Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. That's not a Muslim issue. That's an issue for all of us as a country, and indeed millions of people marched and millions of people still do sign petitions, etc. It's a political issue. Actually, we all struggle with that. But to then attack individuals and abuse them and then abuse their families, you know, is unacceptable. And if this is then the result of some of that, you know, we really have got to ask some serious questions. Clearly, there's an issue now. Whenever anyone wants to build a mosque, people will come out and say, we don't want a mosque. It doesn't matter how good it is. It doesn't matter how, you know, good it will be for the benefit of the community. People feel now they can stand in the street and say no more mosques. You know, I don't know if any of you have looked at any of this stuff on YouTube. I mean, it's almost laughable if it wasn't so sad. Some of these people can't even string, you know, one sentence together. Some of the YouTube clips are literally hilarious because they literally can't speak, but they are what they consider to be representing, you know, a lot of the angst in this country, and we have to be aware of it and listen to it and think about how are we going to deal with this stuff? How are we going to answer what the problems are? The guy on the right at the top there speaking is a Sikh, and within the EDL they have, you know, Sikhs, the Sikh division. They have all sorts of different divisions, and essentially it's become an anti-Muslim, anti-Islamic group. You've got the guy in the corner, Terry Jones, who has no support whatsoever, but of course it gained international news, and you know, people feel that, yeah, you know, he's got something, he's got a point, maybe he's a bit kind of crazy, but actually he's got a point. Has he got a point? You know, so that we have to deal with all of this, and this is going on, you know, all the time. You look on the internet, you see this stuff happening on a daily basis. So what do we do? You know, what's our response? And obviously, you know, I've only got about 2 minutes, and I talk too much as it is, but and I'd love to talk about this stuff all day, but I can't. So, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with some of this stuff? You know, clearly the group of people here and the types of people that I like to work with, whether they be Muslim or not, are the kinds of people that can come up with a positive, if you like, narrative to counter all of what I've just shown in the previous 2 slides. You know, hope not hate. I would urge you all to go online. Everything's online nowadays. I can't stand it. I should say go and look in the encyclopedia in the library, but everything's online. Hope Not Hate is a campaign that essentially came from Searchlight. Searchlight is the main anti-racism movement in Britain, has been around for many years, and Hope Not Hate was specifically designed to counter the BNP in recent elections, and now more recently they've become, I would argue, experts in how to deal with some of the issues around the EDL. We should be working with them, and in fact our organisation, the Islamic Society of Britain, is actually working with them now to try and see what we can do to all work together. Because this is about working with good people, as it says at the bottom. It's about looking at the big picture. The problem is, of course, all of this can make us look inwards, start to make us look, you know, look to ourselves too much. And as I said earlier, go back into the corner and think, we just don't want to deal with this. We'd rather just be amongst ourselves and not have to deal with any of this stuff. The reality is we have to deal with it. I've put there detailitis because I think sometimes one of the things that frustrates me is that Muslims actually become too caught up in detail about so many minor things that they consider to be big things that they actually lose the big picture completely. You know, so sometimes I get an email, for example, I'm sure you all do as well, on text message. Well, it'll give me a whole list of things, for example, and e-numbers and things and shops that I shouldn't eat from, that I shouldn't buy from, that should. And I kind of think, okay, everyone's got their own place. We all have to do this work. But sometimes that kind of detail, you know, if I actually read and understood all of that, I probably wouldn't actually go out. I probably wouldn't buy anything. I probably wouldn't eat anything. So it's about getting a balance. We know Islam is all about balance. I constantly try and remind my kids and remind myself that Islam is all about balance in every possible way, and I feel that's always one of the best things that I love about Islam, that it's all about balance and keeping everything in check. So if you go into too much detail about small things, we're going to lose the big picture, and I would argue we have kind of lost somewhat of the big picture and the big spirit of what Islam actually is about. So again, topic that I could talk about all day. I'm sure we all could. I think maybe some of this is covered in the workshop, I'm not sure. You know, the whole issue around community politics and, you know, how that plays out, what one mosque says about another, you know, the whole issue, I've put judging as a disease absolutely is. You know, there's a great saying that says if you point one finger, you have 3 fingers pointing back. Again, I think it's an absolutely fully Islamic principle that really forever, I find Muslims, I think the one thing I would say, if I was asked recently to we were making a short film, and they asked everyone to say one thing, I wish, blah, blah, blah. So I wish, ... and then what? And I actually naturally put, I wish people would stop judging others so quickly. Because it's got to be a disease. It is Muslim to Muslim, Muslim to others, this kind of sense of arrogance that we're somehow better than everybody else just because we feel we have all of the answers, or one Muslim judging another, one Muslim, you know, going into detail about another. Why is she wearing that and why is he doing that? You know, the number of conversations that men have amongst themselves about women and what they wear and what they don't wear is unbelievable, but I don't even want to open that one up because we will be here all day. You know, the whole women in mosques issue, you know, anyone who thinks that's gone away, it hasn't. You know, the whole women in leadership hasn't gone away at all, you know, still very, very recently, even up to now. There are some mosques that won't let me pray in the mosque and give you all sorts of excuses about, sister, we don't have space, sister, you know, it's not farad upon you. It's all nonsense. As I say, I don't even want to open that one up, but actually, you know, we know the reality. We know that all of the mosques that the Prophet built had space for women, absolutely encouraged men and women to be part and parcel of that community space, if you like. The fact that people are now trying to justify to me that I can't go and pray just because there's no space, I don't buy it. So these issues are still real. The whole forced marriage, culture versus faith issue is massive. You know, you will have issues like that in Ipswich. We absolutely have issues like that in Slough. There are issues like that everywhere. You know, and unless people are willing to stand in platforms and on forums and actually open this up and speak about it, and believe you me, you get all sorts of criticism for saying the kind of thing I'm saying right now, and I haven't even opened it up yet. You know, so it's about all of us trying to find the right people to work with and actually challenge some of this stuff. Because unless we get our own house in order, how on earth we expect other people to look at us in any good way, I don't know. You know, and people can argue that the negative press and etc. is because of the media and all of that, but we have to take responsibility for some of this ourselves. A, we have to give the right messages. B, we have to look at what is actually happening. You know, I remember the forced marriage unit in the government coming forward and asking for help. And of course they get very little help from the Muslim community because people just feel they just want to put the carpet and push it back under and pretend it's not happening. And of course when the forced marriage unit through the government do start to do things, people will say, what do they know? Why are they interfering? They're interfering in our culture, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, if we don't as a community do anything, what choice did the government have when these things are really happening? So again, I could go on all day and I will get told off and I won't. Please, please look this up when you go home. It's an absolutely brilliant title. I wish I'd thought of it myself, and I could have pretended that I did, but I didn't. Sherman Jackson, brilliant, brilliant speaker in America. It's only 30 minutes well spent. Conspiracy Theories as Weapons of Mass Distraction. Brilliant title, I thought. I cried when I listened to it, literally. I know I'm emotional, but I did. My husband was saying to me, what are you crying for? I said, just watch it. The reason I cried was because the guy has got it right down to a T in terms of the issues, the kinds of things that I've sort of touched on around how we just get caught up in detail, how, you know, if we can't even get our own house in order, how on earth are we supposed to, you know, be the best of people, if you like. Really worth watching. If you can scribble it down and look it up and pray for me when you watch it, because honestly, it's brilliant. I wish we could play it, but we don't have time. So again, we have to be part of the solution. You know, as I say, I am an optimist, I think, and generally happy with life, but obviously we have to be realistic as well. And if it is to be, it's up to who? Me. That doesn't mean me, that means each one of you. It's up to all of us to do our bit, really. You know, we are 2 or 3% of the population, so that means 97, 96% of the rest of this population are not Muslim. You know, so let's just wake up and understand that when we talk about our people, when we talk about our country, we're talking about pretty much most people who aren't Muslim. Now, whatever your view is of thinking that you one day want everyone to become Muslim, you know, all of that, however you approach that in your own mind, the fact of the matter is that most of the people around us are not Muslim. And sometimes we get very comfortable in our settings that we're in, especially in a place like where I live, where there's, you know, certain pockets where there's lots of Muslims, it seems. And you can get very comfortable with that, and it sometimes seems easier just to deal with all of that. But of course, that's not the way of the Prophet. That's certainly not the way of the best of people. And, you know, why was he the best of people? It wasn't because he shouted and screamed and made everyone feel uncomfortable and dealt with women harshly and dealt with kids harshly. No, of course, he was the best of people because he was, you know, great to have around and everybody loved him, peace be upon him. You know, we know so many examples, and I tried not to kind of link all of this in too much because I think we get distracted and we need to be able to draw lessons from the Qur'an and the Hadith, and as I say, listen to brilliant sessions as our brother does here and really get to know what the Prophet himself, peace be upon him, was about. But actually, how do we relate that to now and how do we live? All of these kinds of verses, did we not think that we would be tested? Of course, these things are difficult. You know, challenges that we have around us feel like we're never going to get over. They feel like we can never move on. But actually, we know all of the examples in the Quran, the most amazing of books itself says that we will be tested? Do we think that we would just believe and that was it? Of course not. And everyone in here will have their own tests as well, personal tests. But it's about how we get there. How do we move on? How do we become part of the solution? How do we become the people that everyone wants to be around? Because at the moment, I think we are part of a group of people that most people want to run away from for whatever reason. And it's a horrible, horrible feeling. It's really upsetting. But we have to think, right, how do we deal with this? What do we do? How do we come together with good people like this? This is one brilliant way that you can do it. I couldn't have made that better myself. This is one of our events. I've got some posters and leaflets on your thing. I would absolutely encourage all of you to come. If you can't come for 4 days, come for one. Just come and experience it. What we don't do is we don't say come and live in an Islamic village where you're living in an ideal world and out there is, you know, this and that. We don't say that. What we say is come experience it. It's a brilliant atmosphere. Everyone is welcome, families, everyone having a good time. And actually what you do is you become inspired. When you come back to your kind of normal life, you're ready to take on the challenges and actually do things. Actually, to a certain extent, I'm preaching to the converted a bit in here, in that you already are doing some amazing things. I know that. I would urge you all to come, go on the website, have a look. Our dear brother, Abul Munsi, is coming for the first time to speak this year. I'm very, very pleased to say. We have a big top, almost like a circus tent, 5,000 people listening to speeches like his, which will be absolutely amazing on the Friday evening. We have a coffee shop for anyone who likes big fat bits of cake and nice coffee. We have that. We have a Scouts program for the children running from all day, every day, which is all free as part of the cost of the ticket. So any parents who want to get rid of the kids in the best possible way, of course, can do that as well. We have entertainment in the evenings. We have horse riding. We have Jummah in the open air. I mean, I can't sell it to you enough. You know, it's not in my interest for you to come, other than I'm sure if you come, I'll get some sort of reward for it. And please do come and meet me there. I will be there as well. I can't remember if I've got any more slides now. Oh, yeah. That's me. That's my number. Feel free to take it down. I am on that bizarre world called Facebook, so do look me up as well. This is, well, in fact, this is, I mentioned that we were working with Searchlight, and what we have done here, plainislam.com, is a website that I'm very proud to be a part of. It's really trying to teach Islam to people in really proper plain English. So do go onto it and have a look. We're working with Searchlight, so this is our promotional video that's on YouTube, and he's actually spoken about why there's a need for this kind of website, and has really kindly kind of endorsed it for us. So I think that's it. I think my time's well and truly up now, so sorry for talking probably way too fast, and hope it's been of benefit, and inshallah we'll meet again soon. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.